Counting you, yes, Patty.
Okay.
All right, just be a minute here. This will also be on the website in the future for people to watch. So if anybody has any questions, you can just point them to the website.
Counting you, yes, Patty.
Okay. Okay.
What do you think? No.
All right, just be a minute here.
Oh.
This will also be on the website for people to watch. So if anybody has any questions, you can just point them to the website.
Counting you, yes.
All right, we are live on streaming right now.
Okay, I will go ahead and call this meeting to order at 5:16. Is Diane with us?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and do our roll call
Megan Vickers,
here.
Tim Hain,
Here.
Chris Hain,
Here.
Hetty Tyler,
Here.
Chuck Carmen, Rick Wells.
Okay. Okay, next is
Can I ask a
approve
question?
the-
Sorry. Is
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike Davenport joining us on the meeting, or
He's in the council chambers.
he's not showing as a participant? I just want to make sure we've got him before.
I'll go holler at him.
Okay.
And one more thing, I got Doug Smith here, who's our contractor, who might have some, can answer some questions if there's any technical construction questions.
Okay, great. So before we get into our business tonight, we need to approve our minutes from March 10th. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at our minutes?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Any comments on those?
No.
I have one just under the adjournment. The time is not complete. And I don't know what that's supposed to be either.
Well, you're supposed to be a mind reader there, Megan.
It was
Sorry.
right, and it's, yeah, so,
I'll correct it.
okay, anything else?
So who motioned to approve that?
Oh, I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes. This is Chris Hain.
Okay.
A
I'll
second?
second that.
All in favor?
Second.
Sorry, that was Patty who second.
Got it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone
Uh,
opposed?
Rose.
Okay, that was unanimous. Okay, are we ready for our hearing for Motherlode Brewery at Tommyknockers?
Mike Davenport's gone downstairs to log on, so.
Okay, we'll give him a minute. But now for the awkward part of the meeting, where we all just sit here.
Has the HPRC met Mike Davenport?
Yeah.
I don't believe that I have.
Hang on.
Yeah. One.
Are the meeting minutes, the agenda?
The photograph. Just to have it.
I guess while we're waiting, has everyone had a chance to read the application and the staff report? Yes. Okay,
Yes. Mhm.
Megan, when Mike gets on the line, it might be good just to give him a opportunity to introduce himself and give a brief background if just so you know a little bit about him.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
you.
Mike is one of two contract planners with the city right now. The other planner is Barb Cole. And we're fortunate to have both of them because they both have their unique skill sets, and depending upon the type of project, they're able to use their talents to help us with whatever we have going on. So they've gotten up to speed pretty quickly with what's going on here in the city, and really hit the ground running. So we're very fortunate to have them. They're part of a Community Matters Institute, which is a nonprofit, and they've been able to donate some of the services as well, which has been very helpful to us, particularly in these times. So
That's great.
so if they can be deemed educational, so it's always tied into an educational aspect, which some items can be and others aren't. A lot of them aren't, but if they can be, they'll help us out there.
Wonderful.
So
I
they're-
hear the kids.
There's a gas meter over here. So gotta keep away from the gas meter.
Mhm.
Inside there's
Right, yeah, I
so,
see
so
that.
there's not blocking any
No,
view.
I still just have the light, see the window openings.
See, I really prefer it just be centered on this bay.
Maybe really centered on that.
It's okay, so but like I think either one would be acceptable.
I think where they're showing it right now, it's kind of like down.
Right.
All they'd have to do is move
Slide it
just
over a couple
little
feet.
bit.
Yeah, I agree.
I sent Andy to check on him.
So who has a history degree?
I do.
As do I. I'm the gas salesman, but I do have a history degree.
Nice.
So this is the first time I've been part of this. So this is pretty interesting. I've never seen such a process. So we'll figure it out.
It's an interesting process.
Yeah. You guys do it frequently?
Fairly frequently.
All right.
So while we're waiting, is there any word on the painting of the hose house doors?
Yeah, we found the two paint colors that were used on the central hose house. And we did send that information to Tim McDonough. So I think he's gonna start painting any day now.
Okay.
We tried to
Yeah.
order a little bit extra paint too. The central needs a little bit of touch up on that back north wall. So hopefully we can fix that really quick before the summer gets too far.
Yeah, I think the doors on the south side need some touch up too.
Yeah.
We walk by it every day, and every day I look.
Uh-huh. I think you'll see a change fairly soon.
Okay.
And I think those paint colors will work really quite well on that building.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a really good office for me, the central hose house or the Brian. Because it's not really
Yeah, would be.
Except in the winter. Might be a little cold.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. So has it been windy in Idaho Springs today?
Yeah, it was like gusty for some reason. Like it's like not windy at all right now. The flags are down. Then all of a sudden it would pick up for 5-10 minutes and go away.
Uh-huh.
That's strange.
So Mike is going to come use my desk. I guess we had a little bit of a disconnect as far as getting them set up with video and audio. So we'll just have him use my desk here. So you can at least see him.
Okay.
Hi, Mike.
Sorry for the delay, but I guess the planner's computer doesn't have video or audio.
Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you for putting together this staff report for us. I will start. My name's Megan. I'm the chair of the HPRC. So I'm going to have you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then jump right in and tell us about the project.
Okay. I'm a licensed architect as well as an AIC planner. I've been a planning director in 5 different communities, as well as I've been a building official. I've done for 3 different local governments in Colorado. I've been the staff support for the historic board, including almost 10 years in Telluride, where I was on the city staff as the historic preservation architect. And then I also do several conference presentations a year on preservation. I did a training presentation earlier this year for the National Park Service staff, and I'm scheduled for to do a presentation at the National Association of Preservation Commissions, which just a week ago said they're going to go to a video or a remote conference because of the virus. So that's briefly who I am.
Great, thank you. So if you'd like to give us a summary of the project that we're talking about tonight.
Yes, this is an application for Tommy Knockers to replace the existing CO2 tank that is now on the southwest corner of the building. And maybe it might help to actually just briefly to go through the exhibits in the staff report. So if you go to page 5, you can see the view looking from Main Street back towards the rear corner. And behind the white SUV you see on the right, you can see the bare outline of the privacy fence. And at the bottom of page 5, you can see a close-up of the fence. The tank is behind the privacy fence. Historically, in this location, again, just to cover the exhibits, the assessor's records says that the 1-story building that the tank is now next to was there in 1900. However, the Sanborn map doesn't show it. It doesn't show up on the Sanborn map, the 1-story building, until the 1931 map. At the top of the page, on page 4, you can see the railroad station to the left. The 2-story building towards the center of the picture, I believe, is the 2-story portion of Tommy Knockers now. And coincidentally, it looks like on top of that building, there was either a tank or some kind of tower in this picture, which was, I believe, from the, I think from around 1910. I'm not, there wasn't a date that went with this photo. Going to page 6, you'll see a plan view of where the tank is proposed to sit, which is approximately the same location where it is now, again, behind a privacy fence. And on page 7, you can see what the tank looks like in its basic form. At the bottom of page 7, you can see how Tommy Knockers is proposing to give the tank an architectural treatment to make it look more like it fits in. And then finally, on page 8 and 9 and 10, you have some specifications as to what the tank looks like. So going back now to the staff report, as I mentioned, this is next to the 1-story building. It appears it didn't show up until 1931. And the applicant has proposed replacing the tank because of the poor condition it's in. In other words, they're at the point they will need to either replace it in some fashion, or they have apparently increasing repairs they have to make on it to keep it operating. Now, with respect to the criteria of approval, which I'll go through, first, the proposed work is consistent and promotes the purposes of these regulations as set out in subsection 22-2A of the municipal code, which is this basically refers to the preservation process, which is the purpose of getting these, of applying for a certificate of appropriateness. With respect to the existing structure, the proposed work will not adversely materially affect its historic quality. This is a new tank. The tank that is there now was obviously built well after the period of historic significance for the town. It is in front of the building, and we have a recommendation to slightly reposition it with respect to the windows. But in general, this is not adversely affecting, it obviously is not affecting itself. And it is already, presently it is hidden by the fence. Number 3, the proposed work will have no adverse material effect on the historic atmosphere and character of the district as a whole or other designated sites, including state and national designations. In this particular case, the building is located not on the main street. It is located on a side street close to the rear of the building. So it's in terms of locating something like this, the further you can get it from Main Street, the better.
Mhm.
Number 4, the proposed work is in compliance with all current applicable design guidelines. And going through the guidelines, first, it didn't fit the small projects because of its size. If it had qualified as a small project, it would have been exempt. And it is a new feature, or it's a replacement of an old feature, but not a historic feature. So it appeared that at the bottom of page 2, the guideline that seemed to fit best was the other mechanical equipment, which has several parts to it. Number 1, the window air conditioning units should not be located in the front of the building. That's not applicable. We're talking about something on the side near the rear. B, the number 2 regarding antennas, there aren't any antennas related to part of this. 3, mechanical equipment on the ground should be screened from view. The base of the tank is screened from view, but obviously in lifting it up from a horizontal position to a vertical position, that does make it obviously makes it invisible. However, the applicant's proposing an architectural treatment for the tank, as shown in that attachment, to make the CO2 tank a little more compatible with the appearance of the district. And then finally, D, the mechanical equipment attached to the side of or roof of a building, including heating vents, should be kept as low as possible and covered or painted to blend with the background. There is some piping that is on the ground, but that's all hidden by the fence. So all that's visible is the top part of the tank, which is getting this architectural treatment. So the staff, in terms of its findings, it appears that it is in general compliance with new construction design guideline 22. Staff is recommending a certificate of appropriateness with several conditions. First is to move the tank and the north edge of further south so that neither blocks the windows to the south of the door facing 14th Street. I think the preferred location would be to locate it in front of that short wall segment between the 2 windows so that as much of the 2 rear windows facing 14th are visible. Number 2, to repair and renovate the existing fence that screens it now. And then number 3, any proposed sign or graphic image is subject to the sign code and obtaining a sign permit.
Great, thank you, Mike. I'm going to open this up for discussion and questions if anybody wants to jump in with anything.
Okay, we agree with the staff's recommendations and agree that the best place to put the tank would be to center it on that column that's one bay off the corner. We like the graphic on the tank. I think it helps integrate it with the building.
And it is a reversible treatment, so it could be removed at a future time and it doesn't affect the building.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I missed that last statement, but the artist's rendition on page 7 of the tank was just that. When I just commissioned a local artist to take a picture and just do a quick mock-up of what the tank could look like, judging on some pictures we found online of old water tanks. To do a treatment like that to the tank, just like this, would be or the one quote I have is like $5,000.
That's just to paint the graphic onto the tank.
Well, no, the graphic on the tank, that's probably just $500. But if you look close, there's more of a water treatment tank. The top has you've seen old water tanks on top of buildings, 1930s and 40s.
Right, like a sheet metal cap.
Yeah, something like that, or a wood cap. And this is just to kind of depict that, to make it fit into that time period a little better. But
See, this would qualify under the facade improvement program, which you can get 2,500 for. So this would be a great project for that.
Yeah. So some of that can come out of there. The fence needs to be repaired anyways, but to replace that fence is also around $4,000. So Tommy Knockers is trying to negotiate with General Air because it doesn't really benefit Tommy Knockers financially in very much dollars to do this job. It's a safety concern. It's new equipment. The tank that's in there is over 25 years old, and it just needs to be replaced and junked. And Nick Robinson can talk about that a little bit more. You want to talk about the tank?
Yeah, I didn't know. Maybe you started, Steve, so I'll come in here now. So that tank was manufactured in 1968. The one that's at Tommy Knockers right now, and it is in disrepair. It's insulated. It has mechanical refrigeration and heating elements to turn that liquid into gas for them to use in the brew. The new tank is vacuum jacketed, so there's no refrigeration requirement. It will keep that product cool enough. So there'll be a little bit less electrical draw, and we're increasing that storage by about 4,000 pounds, which will keep, ideally, there'll be less of our trucks in your town filling that tank because Tommy Knockers is the main CO2 user in Idaho Springs. We can have that tank painted at the factory. We would be ordering a new tank for Steve anyhow, brand new. So I'm waiting on a quote to see what that addition would be. So we really cool rendition. We read the application. We're like, oh crap, is there any way that we can maybe just paint it? So, if we can find paint, and if I can get a paint code or match what's on the side of the building, and I have that sprayed at Minnesota, in Minnesota at the factory to match the building, that's kind of what we wanted to see if the town would be all right with.
So
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was just wondering, so what does that mean as far as the graphic and the cap?
Well, the cap, the tricky part is getting the cap to sit on there. So, I mean, Steve's contractor, we'd have to use a series of clamps. It's a very expensive vessel that's vacuum jacketed. We can't screw into it. So there'll be, I'm sure that Doug could rig something up, but at what cost? So getting the paint is easy, and we don't mind if Steve wants to put a Tommy Knocker decal on it to possibly, to match maybe the silo on the alley. Because General Air maintains ownership on all those vessels, so I have the authority to paint it for the city, but we just kind of have to watch our budget as well, because we're footing some of the foundation bills for Tommy Knockers because it benefits us as well from a distribution standpoint.
On the in terms of securing the cap to it, aren't there typically a couple of clips on top that you use for being able to hoist the tank?
There's two lift hooks on the top of the tank.
But they need to be able to attach to those hooks.
Yeah, so what I was thinking is making an orifice that goes inside the eye hooks, and then running some kind of all thread through the eye hooks, and then converting a clamp and using a 1.5 inch metal tube frame. Literally make the cone frame. The frame would sit on top and attach to the eye hooks. So the wind load would be okay on it. It would be secure, and it would not attach to the tank. So
okay. Then a second point for clarification, I think the recommendation is not to replace the fence, but just to basically get it into a little better appearance. But it's not, the recommendation is not saying the fence needs to be replaced, it just needs some repair.
So Steve and I are talking about that right now as far as originally we were going to put in new steel bollards and act as fence posts, but I think now what we're going to do, and we're going to talk to Nick about it, is just to satisfy code. We're going to put 2 6-inch bollards in front, the 3 foot, all 3 foot up bollards for protection on the tank, and then the fence will just revert back to 4x4 post, wood post, and replace the pickets, replace any runners that need to be replaced, and just make it look like a new fence.
That sounds good.
This is just a comment. I personally don't have any objection to the tank as it looks right from the factory. With it has a dome top. It's not a very bad looking tank actually. So if that cap was removed, it wouldn't matter to me personally.
And Chairman Vickers,
Patty.
Diane,
Hi, Diane.
if I could speak a little bit towards the picture on the tank
Yes.
of a Tommyknocker, correct?
Yeah.
It wouldn't actually need a sign permit because I would define it as a pictorial design and no permits required for that, as long as it doesn't say Tommyknockers or brewery or anything like that, because the definition of a sign is, advertising for the business.
Okay.
So that's something Steve might want to take into consideration.
Yeah, we know that 'cause we did that in the back style, and that was the same procedure we followed when Al was.
Patty, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I like the plan the way it is. I'm a little confused on where you want to move the tank to. So I need right or left, not north or south or east. So where it sits right now, and I'm looking on page 7 at that picture, are you going to move it to the right toward the back alley?
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
It
Yes.
moves right about 4 foot, Patty.
Okay.
And is that
See the little
possible?
column on the right side of the picture? Right on the
Yes.
right side of the tank. There's a look, you can see the column.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
you'd
it's a
imagine
section
the
wall.
Tommyknockers decal would be centered on that little column to the right of the tank. So about
Okay.
4 feet right.
Okay.
And that's
Yes.
possible to move it to there?
Yeah.
Okay. And so
And then will the fence stay as big as it is, or will it start where the tank is and just?
It needs to for clearance sakes in service. So when we move it over, technically they want 18 to 24 inches. Right now, that picture shows the tank 4 inches from the fence. So once you move it over 4 feet, you're not talking about gaining but about 8 to 10 inches if we move the fence to the right. And then that would mean I would have to take out all the 4x4s, the existing 4x4s, and replace them all that we want to reuse for the existing fence, or to replace.
Okay.
The fence. So I would prefer not to move the fence, but that's up to y'all. But you do need 18 to 24 inch clearance around the tank. So we're moving it 4 feet. So that would move it about 2 feet off the fence line to the south, or to the would be west. To the right, Patty.
Thank you.
So, I mean, we can only move the fence 6 inches to maintain the 18-inch clearance on the left
Okay,
side.
so it's not
There's
worth
really no
doing
reason
that.
to move the fence.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. And thank you for that right and left, We do Quonset hut and, barn where I come from, so.
So I guess then my question that I have is, the depiction that we have now with that cap on it is not necessarily what it's going to look like. That's just a depiction of what it could look like. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Steve, I think maybe we talk to your Photoshopper and we'll try to match the side of your building paint, move that over to the tank itself, and then put the Tommyknocker logo in it, and then go from there. See what that looks like. Is that what everybody'd like to see?
What does the rest of the HPRC think about approving or not not knowing what the top is going to look like for sure.
Is
So
there-
I think if we put that cone on it, it looks really cool. But like Tim said earlier, it's not necessary. So I would say either way is good.
Okay.
Isn't there a drawing too in the submittal? There's some, excuse me, there are some cut sheets for that tank. Excuse me. It's kind of hard to read, but you can see it on page 8. I think
Mhm.
over on the right side. You can see what the top of that tank's gonna
Okay.
look like, if I'm reading this correctly.
If you go to the next page after page 8, there's a larger photograph of what the tank looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
If it's painted the same color as the building wall and it's centered on that column, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I think it looks pretty good.
Okay.
Yep, I agree.
Do we have any other comments, questions, anything else from the applicant before we ask for a motion? No? Okay. Does somebody want to put forward a motion to approve?
Based on the staff's recommendations. I'd like to make a motion to approve this submittal following the staff's recommendations.
I think, if I could say, I think the only recommendation left is to center the tank on the wall behind it, because we're not asking for a new fence. That's up to them if it's needed. And number 2, a sign permit's not needed either. So that gets us down to one condition, and to be more specific, to move it approximately 4 feet so it's in front of the wall between the 2 windows.
Right.
Yes.
So if we can make that motion reflect moving that approximately 4 feet to center it between the windows. Chris, do you want to add that to your motion?
Sure. Yeah, so we'd like to approve this based on moving the tank approximately 4 feet to center on the windows, or I'm sorry, to center on the wall between the windows. But the other recommendations regarding the fence and the, what was the other one?
Sign
The
permit.
cap.
And the
Sign.
cap. I'm sorry.
I think the other one that you discussed is that
Oh, the sign.
you're willing to give them flexibility as to how they carry out the final architectural treatment, whether it's painting or whether it involves something else. Your discussion seemed to indicate you're willing to give them flexibility on that. So you might want to have that in the record as well.
Well, I think we do want it painted.
Right. We definitely want to see it painted the same color as the wall. The
Diane,
cap-
can you read back what we have so far?
Just Chris, motion to approve the COA by moving the tank approximately, what was it, 8 inches or something?
4
4
feet.
4 feet, I believe.
Uh-huh.
4 feet?
4 feet.
Whatever it takes to center it on that column between the two windows.
Do you want to add something about the color?
We would like to see the tank painted.
I'll add that to
for
the motion.
discussion.
Yeah, can you add that to the motion, Chris?
Sure, yeah, I'd like to add that we would like to have the tank painted and to match the building wall. And we understand that the decal on the tank does not require a sign permit.
And I must reiterate that it can't say Tommyknockers. It has to remain as a pictorial design
Okay.
in order to qualify for not needing a sign permit.
Okay, can you,
Agreed.
okay. Can you read that back for us, Diane, so that we know exactly what we're voting on?
Chris, motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness, moving the tank approximately 8 feet.
No,
No,
4
no,
feet.
somewhere around,
4 feet.
looks like 3 or 4 feet, something like that.
4 feet to be centered between the 2 large windows.
To center
Right.
between the windows, and that the tank is painted to match the building.
That's correct.
Okay, do we have a second on that motion?
I second.
Patty just seconded. Everyone in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone approve?
Aye.
The motion passed unanimously for the certificate of appropriateness for Tommyknocker Brewery to install a new CO2 tank, sorry. Okay. Is that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight to present that to us.
Any questions? Feel
Yeah,
free to.
thanks for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else before we move on to our next order of business? All right. Our next order of business is to, okay. John, we are gonna have you tell us a little bit more about where we're going with our public meeting for our survey plan for the grant.
I hope everybody had a chance to look at my staff report. What I'd like to do is just make sure that we have a plan for this kickoff meeting that we need to have that was supposed to be on St. Patrick's Day. Andy and I have been working on quasi judicial hearings and allowing people to be in City Hall for those purposes. And we think we can replicate some of that for this purpose to have a public open house. Our general idea would be we can have 10 people in the chambers right now. We'd go off the state guidance for that. And we could do a reservation system to let people come in and talk to Mary Therese or potentially HPRC. We have a space downstairs and upstairs that could be used for this purpose where we could let small numbers of people in to kind of view the materials for this meeting. I'd really like to get this done so that we can do our first reporting to the state about progress made for the survey plan. And I think Mary Therese can get her work going and start wrapping things up, a lot of the in-city work up if we can get this done as well. So I was just wanting to kind of touch base with you guys, see what your thoughts were on doing this kickoff meeting. I gave you guys some alternatives that we might consider in the staff report. And I was just looking to see if you guys had a preference for anything in there or anything else.
Have we been in contact both with Mary Therese and also the folks down involved with our grant with the State Historic Fund?
We've talked.
I guess, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry. We've spoken to Mary Therese. She's ready to go. She'd like to get moving on this because, she does have to travel to get to Idaho Springs for that part of the work. The state, we're not required to do our reporting yet. I think that our first report is due later this summer. I probably will touch base. That's a good idea that we should touch base with them and just make sure everything's, we know what they're thinking with the changing conditions in the world. And
right. Because I'm not advocating by any means that we push it off and delay it. But I'm just wondering if they've pushed deadlines, if there have been any changes to reporting requirements because of this.
And we do have 2 years on our contract to complete this. The thing that my thought and kind of talking to them before is we are the very first one of these grants. And I think they'd like to wrap it up so they have something to show people, for other people who are applying for it. So this kickoff meeting is really the only thing holding her back at this point from really working. And I really would like to make sure she's not working in the community until we have this. Mike actually provided us with a letter that they used in Telluride. That's a really good one that just kind of like she could take with her when she's out and about. But I think if we had this public meeting, it's especially considering the conditions in Idaho Springs, having a stranger walking around, taking pictures of houses or whatever she's doing. I just want to make sure that people have an opportunity to see what it's really about.
And I agree. And I just, like I said, I'm not advocating we delay it by any means. I think we should push forward. I just want to make sure that we're on board with the state as well. And I agree that Mary Therese, I'm sure she's getting antsy and wants to get started. So I would love to get this going. I really do like option number one. I like the in-person opportunity for folks because I think even if we can do, my family's been doing Zoom meetings for months and I think a lot of people are, but there's a lot of people in this community who do not use computers. And that's a really big concern for me is that we're going to lose a lot of people who are interested. We might lose people who are interested who don't want to show up in person too. So it'd be great if we could have a way, if there are people who would rather call in, I don't know, is that possible to do a kind of joint thing?
We could absolutely do that. The thing that's going to be a little bit interesting is that if we do this like kind of reservation system like we've been talking about, we're going to be giving essentially the same presentation however many times we need to get through it.
Right.
And so that could be where the challenge is. So maybe what we do is like live stream the first session or something like that. And then maybe we just I had to figure it out. Or we could just live stream the whole thing and then people could just, drop out once they've gotten their fill of it. I'd probably but I could definitely do that.
Okay. What does everyone else think?
We talked about this before the meeting, and typically the contractor would provide some sort of a PowerPoint presentation that it could be somewhat long. If you're only going to have 10 people in the room at a time, it could take a long time to get through this PowerPoint. So we're wondering if it would be possible for Mary Therese to create something that could be put online that the PowerPoint presentation wouldn't necessarily need to be explained. It could be self-explanatory, and anyone could get onto the website and view it. Or maybe it's a YouTube video or something like that, explaining her process and that sort of thing.
We could definitely do that. And I think what we'd probably do is create a page on the city website with that presentation or video or whatever it turns out being. And then we could still have this open house so people could come and ask questions. That would be a kind of a workaround where people could view the PowerPoint and then they could come to City Hall and say their piece and then they could leave. I'm not sure that we're gonna have a huge, I go back and forth about how many people may be interested. It just depends on how things are going that day, I think, but
well, I see traditionally we have not had good turnouts for things like this. I mean, the couple that we've tried to do since I've been on this, but because of the current atmosphere and climate in this community, I wonder if we'll get more than we have in the past.
Yeah.
So that's probably where you are, John, with that.
And the other thing just to keep in mind is that we don't have to necessarily set a date for this yet. On the 25th or the 26th, we'll have guidance from the governor about how this next phase of opening businesses is going to work. There's also going to be probably a variant submitted by the county, which is going to change how we operate at City Hall as well. We're currently planning on a reassessment on the 25th about how City Hall operations go. And so one way that we could do it is say, option one is a good direction to head, but we're going to follow the state guidance and talk to the, History Colorado before we do anything. And just make sure, because the whole thing is we're not going to do this unless everybody can be safe and unless it's a valuable experience. And so if you guys were to give me a little bit of direction in that way, like if you wanted to go for the Zoom kind of conference idea or the, try to do this in person, which we would live stream just like any city council meeting kind of thing. I could, come back to you. Because we could do this in June. We could still meet in June on this issue, potentially with what the, fitting into the system, the ever-changing kind of situation at that point.
Does Mary Therese, have you talked to her about how she would envision this?
Yeah, she is comfortable with just putting something on the website. I would really like to have an opportunity for community feedback. So that portion of this is really coming from staff. I think she doesn't necessarily think it's 100% necessary for what she's doing. I know this is going to look to some like we're doing a blight study again. And I don't want that to be message here.
Sorry, barking dogs.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I think that we need to have community input again, especially nowadays, the way our community responds. And I do think, Megan, that we'll have more people also because of that reason. I think the Zoom would be okay, but I think you get more responses from people when you can put them in a room. So yeah, my suggestion would be to wait till after the governor revises, extends, or changes on the 25th, what the limitations are going to be, and then move forward with deciding if a Zoom is better. But I definitely believe just putting it out on the website is not enough information, that people actually need to be able to see it and then talk about it.
This wouldn't require direct action either. I don't think you guys would need to vote on this. And so I could send an email update to the HPRC once we have that guidance and we know what's going to happen. And we could, as long as we follow the rules for open meetings and all those kinds of things, I think we could take a look at this that way, and I could go through Andy and make sure that we get everything set up properly. But, you know, even if we waited until June, we're still only a month away from there. And then that still gives her July and August at least to get her kind of summer work done before it gets cold again.
Right.
Right.
I don't have her proposal in front of me right now. But how long did she say she needed to do the field work? Do you remember?
It wasn't very long. It was like a couple of weeks at most.
Okay, so so the end, that whole, I mean, even July, August, September, maybe even to October, I mean, that should be plenty of time for her.
I think
to
so.
do.
She
Okay.
just didn't really want to be traipsing through the snow and the wet because, you know,
Yeah,
and she's got that long drive to Salida. So I think that's the other piece is that it's, you know, there's some dangerous road conditions potentially.
yeah, well, we don't want to make it difficult for her
Right.
by any means. So I think I would love to do, I'm agreeing with you, Patty, that we should hold off until we hear what the governor says. It's only a week away. But I would ideally, I think ideally number one is what we want to do. And I think that we should, even if we can do number one in person, I would like to see a lot more of that online as well. I mean, I know it's live streamed, but I'd like to see some publicizing of that so that people who can't come to the meeting or don't want to come to the meeting, or so that she doesn't have to do her presentation 10 times or whatever. I'd like to see, I guess, some kind of combination of electronic and in person so that we hit as many people as possible, the most efficient way possible. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Or did I just like muddle through that?
No, I fully intend on doing exactly what you said. I don't know if you've been to the city website lately. I've been making some changes and we're about to upgrade the website altogether.
Okay.
But the video page of the website has changed significantly. There's going to be, I don't see a reason why your meetings aren't going to be live streamed from this point into the future as well. It's all set up to do that. And so we have some new capabilities that I just built into the website that we can really hugely increase our video presence. It's also keyword searchable now. So people can search for in this meeting, like anytime you say water, they could search for water and it would pull up video for that. So it's going to be pretty cool once it's all finished. And we are right in the home stretch of that right now. So
That's great. Thanks, John. So does anyone else have anything else they want to say about that? Did that all make sense to everyone? Is there anything else you need from us, John, did we give you guidance that you wanted to hear?
I just want to make sure I wasn't scaring you guys with having this idea of a public meeting, but I just want you to know if we do it, it's going to be safe and effective. So, and we'll do it, digital. We'll have an online version too. So, but I just wanted to, I think this is something that was important to talk to you about before we kind of moved forward. So.
Well, and I'm glad you are, because not that I thought it was going to fall through the cracks, but it's probably not real high on the priority list with everything else going on. So I'm glad it's still on your radar, and because that grant is important and finishing the grant is important. So I appreciate it. All right. Anything else? I agree. I don't think we need to vote on it. I mean, we've already reflected in all our minutes that we're doing this public meeting. And so I think right now we just need to figure out the details and logistics. And does everyone else agree with that as well?
Yes.
Yes, yep.
Yes, I agree.
So it's okay to pursue some kind of combination of option 1 and 2 per the government or the state guidance for public gatherings and so forth. That's
where I'm at with it.
And I will bring it back to you before we set any kind of details firmly or anything like that.
Okay.
Okay.
That is everything on our agenda. Is there anything else? I don't think there's anything else that we need to talk about. Patty, do you have your hand up?
I think it's Diane.
No.
No.
Diane, do we have anything official with
Nope.
Chuck?
Mine.
No, we don't. Okay.
Nope. Sorry, I'm playing with a paperclip.
Oh. So Diane, what do we need to do to get Patty to be official as opposed to an alternate?
Is Chuck resigning?
Well, we had talked about it at our last meeting back in March about him resigning since he's on council, Patty stepping in his place.
So it's official that Chuck is resigning?
I don't know. I thought you two were going to talk.
We did. That's what I was trying to say at the beginning. I don't think he is. I don't think that's his intention.
Oh, okay.
Really? I thought he was.
We did have that conversation. That's accurate. But since then, and I could be wrong. And maybe what we need to do is talk to him and just see where he's at. It's a little strange to me because he's been very early to every meeting to this point. And so I'm wondering if maybe there's just cross signals here or something. So.
Right. Is that something as chair that I should reach out to him, or is that something that staff should reach out to him?
I think since you're the chairman, you could.
Okay, I will reach out to him and see what he has to say. And then Diane, I'll get back with you when I talk to him.
Okie dokie.
Okay, and Patty, you're still okay stepping in that position, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I will reach out to Chuck. If we don't have anything else, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 6:06.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you.